Morning, everyone. I'd like to call the Executive Committee of Bruce County May 17th meeting to order. Welcome, everyone. I have some viewers online, I suppose. And the first item, I need to remind everyone, of course, it's our own responsibility to close any pecuniary interest that you may have on today's agenda. And moving on to information items is our CAO's overview. Kelly Calder.
Through you, Mr. Warden, I will give just some salient highlights for the report. So far for Q1 on the annual business update, you'll note that things are progressing very, very well. In particular, the transportation and environmental services, the work that they have added on to their calendar with the Chesley Bridge failure, that they've absorbed it and continue to do a lot of really good work. As a bit of a sidebar, I will advise all members of committee that the demolition of the bridge, the physical demolition, is scheduled to occur on Tuesday, assuming we have no additional heavy rains as we've been experiencing. The balance of the open items from 2017, I thought it was of importance to highlight that as well, because it does add a pressure to the team for Q1. So at this point in time, we have 28 initiatives that have been carried forward. The expectation is that the vast majority of those will be completed by Q2. The new e-agenda software or eScribe will be fully launched in December of 2018, which will coincide with the new term of council. The Ecosystems Initiative has progressed extremely well and is approaching 100% complete, and has been, I would say, both the corporate services team and the firm that led the initiative have made it virtually seamless to the organization. And the balance of human services items are scheduled to be complete for Q2 that are largely capital related to the housing portfolio. Shifting over to 2018, we have a collective of 55 projects that are active for 2018. Excuse me. With the only item that will not be updated for committee today, you do have it in your package, but with Director Nero and her bereavement leave, that will not be covered through you, Mr. Chair. The Finance Division for Corporate Services as well, one change that was made at my request, that the financial management software that was in process to assist with budgeting and reporting, that it has been placed on the shelf until 2019. Given the level of projects that were in play and the workload on the various staff, it just seemed to be the right decision. The Bruce Works and the lean processing for the accounts payable and communication strategy have all continued and are on track and are doing quite well. It does bear noting that the request for the FMW to be put on a shelf has absolutely nothing to do with personnel performance, but more a realization that the workload driven by Bruce Works and the accounts payable project for the lean processing, that I had great concerns about the overall staff demands. And so moving on with Q1, I think you'll be pleased with the updates as the directors provide them. I do want to highlight that the health services team really are deserving of special recognition. Under Director McKeag's leadership in the past 6 months, that the organization is progressing well, and we can see that through the impact of the centralized scheduling office. Steve Schaus has been leading the transformation of scheduling and the development of the standard operating procedures for the two homes. And the ward clerk positions in particular are now able to return to provide staff support on a floor-by-floor basis, in particular for the registered nurses and the registered practical nurses. As well, for just a reminder that with the restructuring that occurred, the two administrator roles are now back in the home 100% of the time, which has had a dramatic impact. It basically returned them into the home 3 days a month. That under the old structure, they were not in the facility, which added a workload constraint. The summary of the 2018 major initiatives is attached along with the Q1 status update for your awareness, and I can answer any questions through you, Mr. Warden, before moving into the financial statement review by the Director of Corporate Services.
Any questions of the CAO at this particular time? Hearing none, we'll move on with Director of Corporate Services, Betty Ann.
Good morning, and thank you, Mr. Warden. This report has been prepared for your information. There's a lot of updates in it, but just a couple of things to highlight that I wanted to do today is provided in the background, and particularly with the energy program and the energy efficient measures that we have incorporated into it. You will recall that our 2017 budget, we did have a fairly significant surplus as a result of the new measures, but also as a change in rates, and also the 8% reduction in the HST from the provincial government. So we transferred just over $500,000 towards that project across the organization in 2017, and our current trends for 2018 are predicting that we may have be in a similar position, and staff are just doing an analysis at this current time, and we'll be bringing a report forward for committee's consideration and showing you the results of the ecosystems project. As well as included in this report, the projected surplus. You'll recall that we did the request for proposal late in 2017 after the 2018 budget had been set. So we're predicting, or we are forecasting, there is a projected surplus. It's not forecasted, it has been established because the rates have been established, so that $213,000, and we'll be bringing forward a report recommending a redirection of that surplus at the June meeting. As well, you will, with a nice sunny day, you may not recall, but April was not as kind to us, even early May, as we would have liked for winter control. So the surplus that we were predicting will be adjusted accordingly as we report on the results of April and May, and that's not only in our transportation but also in our facilities, as we have snow removal in many of those facilities. Also just wanted to highlight in paramedic services, in the health services program, the subsidy, and you'll be hearing more of that, a report from Director McKeag, as we have the delay in last year's announcement was significant, but now we've already heard the results for 2018, so $254,000 injection into the 2018 revenues, including the 2017 portion and the 2018 that weren't budgeted. And as well, under Director McKeag, he'll be reporting on the May 1st funding announcements for our long-term care and the adjustments to the case mix index and how those may positively affect the forecast for 2018. And the only other thing I wanted to mention was that traditionally we have provided a report at the end of May, a 5-month, but as a result of some modernization in the within the finance team, we've been able to bring projections and bring them earlier to you. So we would like to continue having these updates to coincide with our business plan updates. So as a result, the next report would be at June 30th and presented with the updates on August 9th. Monthly, departments do receive their forecast and updates, and would obviously be bringing forward any changes within what you've been hearing at an earlier date, but from the finance team it would be quarterly. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Where are you going?
They looked quiet.
Any questions or comments for Betty Ann? No, you just do such a fantastic job. No one's got any questions, Betty Ann. Next up, I'm unclear who's got that list. Oh, the CAO. Take her away, Kelly Colder.
Okay, through you, Mr. Warden. I'll begin with a quick review of the key performance indicators. Largely, there is not a lot to report at Q1. However, I do want to highlight the total staff connected to service departments and just remind committee that that was a result of the realignment of the planning and development department, and the increase of the 2 staff was the movement of the corporate policy department into the office of the CAO. So moving on, I'll give a very brief update in terms of the annual business plan. We completed our second mental wellness week from May 11th to May 7th. Although it's Q1, this is always a difficult thing because there's stuff that's actually occurred that it feels a little bit awkward that you're giving an update that it's planned to occur. But with this particular program, I do want to highlight that it has occurred. It was a great success. We had a couple of speakers come in, and we were able to expand the program so that it went beyond the traditional hours of operation, so that we could have individuals in particular that work in our 24/7 have availability to hear, in particular, the Mindful Mike and Nancy Gowan, both of which address mindfulness and mental wellness resilience. For the strategic plan initiative, that will occur in Q3. The RFP will be released with all of your inclusion of what you would like to see, and ideally that we would have a report come back in December for a launch of January of 2019. The beginnings of both Bruce Works and lean processing in Q1, it has progressed quite well. The work of the corporate services team in relation to Bruce Works, which is, again, the conversion to the cloud, SharePoint, and Skype for Business, it has gone very well up to and including the end of Q1. The majority of work for that particular project will occur in Q3 and Q4. Our biggest risk factors at this point is, again, the records management component and ensuring that we continue to be lean with how we deal with our records. The senior management team met to determine what would be an appropriate initiative that would have corporate-wide impacts, and through a day of discussions effectively, it was determined that the accounts payable process would be the the perfect initiative to begin with, and to start to really take apart and see where we could see improvements to the process and continue to enhance value across the organization. And then the third initiative is the communication strategy, which will be presented to you through County Council at the summer session in July. The work has progressed well for Q1. And with that, Mr. Warden, I can respond to any questions.
Any questions or comments for Kelly? Very good. Thank you, Kelly. Next up is back with corporate services strategic priorities. Those should be passed out.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. I'm pleased to present our 2018 Q1 update for corporate services, and we, as indicated when we presented, have tidied up our key performance indicators. The first one is our new insurance claims, and pleased to report that there have been no new claims in first quarter. The introduction of the full-time CEMC Community Emergency Management Coordinator in 2018, those job responsibilities include the insurance program and support of risk management initiatives that continue to minimize the corporate exposure. The second is the analysis of the website visits, which has been circulated. It shows comparisons to 2017, but in many cases, this is not an apple-to-apple comparison because of the redesign and the implementation of the county website in July of 2017. As previously reported, and certainly worthy to be repeated, the viewer is able to get to the pages quicker and are able to consume the same content all on one page, and this is more effective and definitely a positive experience for the viewer. The decline should not be seen as negative. Rather, the page views is a good indicator that the content we are providing is important and valued. Of particular note is the continued success of the Bruce County 150th site even after the end of the celebration. Certainly recognition to the increases to the library site, the business to Bruce, and it is obvious that the public continues to enjoy the museum photo site and the adventure passport site. These information technology, the service desk support ticket usage is intended to highlight the activities of the division's operational side and reflects a full accounting of all of the work regardless of the origin. By utilizing this ticketing system more fully, it can be reported on more completely and gain insights into trends so that the IT resources are organized to deliver valued services. And as mentioned by our CEO in her update, one of the initiatives as a result of this was under the lean methodology and implementing a new process for the deployment of the hardware. And finally, the average number of invoices processed weekly is consistent with the same period in 2017. There always seems to be a bit of a spike when we have at year end as we completed 2017. The finance team continues to encourage electronic fund transfers, which has certainly been welcomed by our vendors and is a further step of modernizing our processes. I will move on into our three major initiatives. And the first one was the implementation of modernizing and our operating and capital budget and our forecasting tool for the salary planning module. And you will recall we have done considerable amount of work within the finance team to bring forward templates, and this was going to be the next step in that modernization. And as our CAO has reported, that due to the organizational demands of Bruce Works and the corporate initiative for lean, the project will be delayed to 2019. And while the project has been delayed, certainly the enthusiasm to deliver the software tool for financial budgeting and reporting remains high, and looking forward to that for the 2020 cycle. Again, the implementation of BruceWorks, and also mentioned by our CAO because of its corporate nature and supported by the cross-functional team. And I do want to point out, maybe for just the benefit of everyone, because we've had the conversation, so BruceWorks is purposely, with a capital B, with a capital W, a small X in place of the K, just to be unique, just like we are in Bruce County. We like to stand out and be unique, and because we are special.
That's true.
That is true. So BruceWorks recognizes our shift to new collaborative technologies, and within the BruceWorks umbrella, as mentioned, it certainly will have SharePoint, but it also will include new to the county technologies like Skype for Business and OneDrive for Business. As I mentioned, it is supported by a cross-functional team, and we are introducing a modern and efficient way to do business. The mandate is to introduce tools to activate a highly collaborative, efficient, and flexible working environment across the organization. And if we had been live streaming last week in the Saugeen room, you would have seen your senior management team doing just that. We were definitely highly collaborative and efficient, as we had the pleasure of participating in what they call a customer immersion experience from Microsoft. And it is a simulated office environment, and it showcases the collaboration and the document tools that will be made possible through BruceWorks and moving to the cloud. And not only the senior management team, but a number of our staff have had the opportunity to be able to do that, and that just has elevated the excitement, and really looking forward to moving into the final steps as we move forward in 2018. And we are planning a visual update for council at the summer session, so that you can also see and experience some of what is happening. In Q1, the configuration occurred for the connectivity to the cloud infrastructure, and also researching and preparing for the required licensing procurement. And again, as our CAO suggested, this is a Q1 update, but lots of things have been happening in April and May, and at the time of this writing, we had 36 staff who had migrated to the cloud, and now we are 700 plus at this point that we are in that position. So a number of staff actively using Skype for Business for inter-office communications, and also being able to have insights into their work using My Analytics. And these insights will certainly continue to drive improvements in individual and also team productivity. And finally, the third initiative is the Lean Initiative, examining the accounts payable process. And in Q1, the senior management team agreed to have the first corporate Lean project to be an analysis of the accounts payable process. A team charter has been approved, and the workshop will define the current condition and the target condition, which is an accounts payable process that is more consistent, shorter, faster, and easier for all, and with clear accountabilities. The workshop includes 8 Lean team members representing finance, human services, and transportation, and will be conducted May 29th to June 1st. And that completes my report.
Thank you, Betty Ann. Any questions or comments for Betty Ann? Ann?
Well, we just, at the municipality of Kincardine, we just had a little workshop. And the only reason I was there is because it's moving documents to digital signatures and also the document management tools, so that there's more. Everything can be stored and cut down on our paper and things. So this BruceWorks is essentially just another program that does this, or did we just, I can't remember, I think the name of ours was Notarius or something like that. And is this a very similar program for managing the documents where you move to mostly everything's electronically with digital signatures and which are more secure, I understand. I didn't know the difference between electronic and digital. It had never been explained to me before. So is that the type of thing that we're moving towards, or maybe you already have?
So the county currently uses a program called TomRIMS, which is used fairly widely across municipal government, and that is for our records management. BruceWorks is our internal name that we have provided just how we're going to work in the future, so including SharePoint, which is going to be certainly a great tool for document management, version control, and as previously mentioned by our CAO, certainly the records management part of it is key as we're moving documents into the cloud and making sure. But BruceWorks really is, in a nutshell, is that collaborative tool using the Microsoft suite of products and how we can access documents anytime, anywhere, from any device at any place, but yet in a very secured environment.
So it's...
It would be different, I think, than what you're reviewing right now.
Aspects of it are very similar. Thanks.
And Betty Ann, that's what you're going to demonstrate at our July session?
At the July session, we are working towards a short presentation just to demonstrate the benefits of BruceWorks.
Anything else? Again, thank you, Betty Ann, and I think Health Services is up then.
Good morning. Thank you very much.
Just take it away whenever you're comfortable.
Thank you. Warden, this document's been pre-circulated, so I've got a couple of comments to make regarding the key performance indicators that may be of interest, and then I'll move quickly on to our report. With regards to the 2018 year-to-date Q1s, you'll notice a bit of a in the cost per average day of long-term care, a bit of a blip. This is due in part to our subsidies not being calculated in this as they've not arrived, so we're paying more of the bill than will be reflected when the subsidies arrive. So that will go down. The with regards to the paramedic services piece, you'll notice that there is a lessening of our cost from previous years. This is due to our calculation of the superintendent's hours of operation within inside that calculation. So it brings it down slightly from previous years where it was 180. Would there be, with regards, I'm sorry, to long-term care home observations, there's a number of these things which are progressing. As you can see with our 118 goals versus our 118 actuals, I would draw to your attention also that this data is old, that the Her Majesty's government typically publishes quarterly performance indicators 12 weeks after the end of the quarter, so we're dealing with some old data here, but we're already seeing some of our goals being attained. Would there be any questions, Warden, on key performance indicators for health services?
Any questions at this point? Hearing none, let's carry on.
Very good, sir. With regards to the implementation of centralized scheduling, we are anticipating full transition in Q2. This means all scheduling services will be quarterbacked out of the Walkerton offices. With regards to the investigation of further synergies and possibilities between the homes and paramedic services. We are going through a process now of comparison, so we believe by Q3 we'll have a very good process of knowing what kind of synergies, such as purchasing, we can realize between the different agencies, as well as lessons learned from each of the departments, amongst the departments, and then amongst the organization as well. As you're aware, the communication system will be installed to Gateway Haven, Nurse Call Bell, and resident WanderGuard systems will be put in place this summer. And with regards to our enhanced peer support process for paramedic services and long-term care homes, with regards to the process that exists now, we're enhancing it with the assistance of staff for paramedic services, and we'll be introducing this concept to long-term care homes in July. The Port Elgin Station is currently under a design process where it's being examined as part of a multi-service building feasibility approach for that station. And that would be our update, Warden.
Thank you, Michael. Port Elgin Station, multi-purpose building. What was that? What was when you use that terminology? What was your definition of that?
Warden, what we're looking at right now is taking a look at other potential county buildings that may be restructured or built in that area, and we're just seeing that as that process is explored, is it more efficient and effective to have the paramedic services building part of that or not?
Well, I'm not so sure. Like, are we back to looking at maybe partnering with Port Elgin Police Services to go there? No, just our own library building, maybe. Yeah, well, that's fine. Yeah. So, do you think we'll see some final design by the end of Q2, or be prepared to go to tender on that building? What's your expectations there?
I can't comment on that right now, Warden, simply because it's still at the very early stages, and I would have to talk to other clients in that process to get that sense. I think those dates may be a little optimistic, given the complexity that a multi-service building would have. We're still talking to our colleagues about what we need in the building, and we're developing that needs concept so that we can go to further development of drawings.
So we're not turning ground in 2018?
I don't believe so, sir, no.
Build a bridge in 9 months, you can't even build an ambulance station. There's something wrong here. Anyways, that's okay, Michael, carry on, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions of Michael? I got sidetracked there again, of course. Hey. Thank you, and keep up the good work.
Okay. Thanks, sir, very much.
So, Human Resources is being postponed today, so that would put us to Human Services. So, how was your holiday? Or were you in Venice or something?
I wasn't in Venice. I was in Spain. It was
Spain.
lovely. Wow. Thank you. Brought lots of new ideas back.
Good.
So I'm pleased to have before you our Q1 update for the Human Services Department, and I'll start with the KPIs. You've probably noted that we're tracking well for the first quarter of the year, but did want to just describe for you a few items of note. So the average length of time that clients receive social assistance has reduced again, which is good news. The cost of subsidized space for childcare is running slightly higher than we expected. That, of course, fluctuates due to a number of external variables, so we're really not surprised that that's fluctuating a bit. The long-term housing strategy is spread over the 10-year period, so we're working towards the 100% completion over the 10-year period. The number of available childcare spaces per 1,000 children has increased from 185.11 to 188.7, so we know that's good news as our economy and population is expanding, that we are creating more spaces for children in childcare. And the number of households that are receiving social assistance has increased slightly from 586 households to 605. In Q1 of 2017, we did have 592 households on assistance. So some of that fluctuation is the seasonal nature of employment in our area as well. The number of business days from screening to financial eligibility has reduced from 5 to 4. And so I'm really excited about that. Staff have put much effort into reviewing and streamlining our business processes to get us there, so they really deserve to be commended for that work. The percentage of childcare spaces is stable, and with the expansion of new childcare centers coming on and additional provincial funds, we're expecting, of course, that that will continue to increase, but sometimes uptake takes a bit of time. The housing facility projects that are delivered on time and on budget right now, you'll note in asterisks that it's only 8 of 18 projects that we're reporting on there. And so I will mention that the unplanned workload that's been associated with the flood and fire that we had this year will perhaps require some prioritization. And if that's the case, staff will report back on that by our Q2, any changes that we need to make there. The percentage of the waiting list house based on the first quarter actuals and projected to year end is considerably higher, and so you're probably wondering about that. It may simply be a reflection of the timing of move-outs this year. So staff have been noting that we've had particularly high number of move-outs compared to usual. It usually is staggered across the year more equally. And we've seen a high number of move-outs to date this year, but we'll monitor that to see if that's an overall trend that is changing. And I'll pause there if there's any questions on KPIs before I move on.
Milt and Mike.
Okay. Yeah, just a clarification on the number of available regulated childcare spaces per 1,000 children. So we say there is 180 or 85 or something like that, whatever it is. So that is per 1,000 children.
So for every 1,000 children, and of course it's a percentage, and so that's why we have the points. If we go to our index, you'll see the formula. Oops, I went too far. Sorry. Libraries won't help. Okay.
Well, libraries, it could. They have lots.
Okay, so the percentage of available childcare spaces is right here. The total regulated spaces is licensed spaces in childcare centers, nursery schools, or the home childcare program, and it's divided by the 0 to 12 population for the county. So it's always a formula that's changing and updating based on how many new spaces we have and as the population fluctuates with the number of children.
So how are we serving, how is childcare being, the number of spaces we have available in Bruce County, sufficient, very insufficient, or?
To put it roughly, it generally is about a quarter of the total need, probably. About a quarter. But that is reflected right across the province.
Yes.
We're not unique.
No.
And so actually just last week, I believe it was, a report came out from Dr. Gordon Cleveland talking about affordability and a number of different factors. And as well, there's another workforce strategy that has just come out, being published. And so we'll be looking at those different pieces of information and seeing how we continue to develop our strategy and how it all fits together. But it definitely is something that the province is looking at, in particular with different discussion about what the future of childcare might look like. So there is thought of, from the current government, that we should be extending free childcare to the age of 2.5. And so that affordability paper explains where they've arrived at that decision. And of course, there's other ideas about what the system could look like as well too. So we'll bring an information report back with further details about some of that stuff, and we're also looking at how it compares to our local context.
Right. I guess whether it's free or not, if they're not available.
Right, so that's part of the consideration of the strategy in terms of how do you move to that sort of system. And also, how do we identify, so of interesting note is that typically it is those older kids, just as they're about to enter school, that are in the licensed settings. It's generally infants that may be using other types of care, such as home child care and that sort of thing as well too. There's less infant spaces than the preschool spaces.
Thanks, Mr. Warden. My questions, or a comment and a question, I guess, is around the number of business days from screening to financial eligibility. And I think it's great that we've got it down to 4. I guess my question is, what are the obstacles to get it down any farther?
Good question. So some of it is the process in terms of the verification and the different pieces that are required. And so part of it also is just the timing of the steps that are involved. So there's an intake that occurs. There's verification information that's supplied. The caseworker then needs to look at, verify, do a few different steps to it. Part of our delay previously was some business practices around how we manage our geography. And so we've found some ways to minimize those impacts. And hopefully too, something like Bruce Works will further enhance that as we move forward, as we have, again, more streamlined opportunities with technology. And so hopefully we'll continue to move that forward. At 4 days, we are meeting the provincial standard.
That's an interesting question. So at the 4 days, you find out if you're eligible. When do they actually receive some cash to get groceries?
We are able to very quickly process those checks as they're required in collaboration with the finance department. So whenever it's of emergency nature, we're able to process those quickly, usually within a day. And then, of course, once we have people on the regular process, a vast majority of ours have direct deposit. So that just makes things really easy for clients because the money is being deposited directly into their bank account on a monthly basis.
I have another question, and I guess I'm really confused, just if you could help me. So I'm back to childcare. You had a number there of, I was just converting it to 18%, but I was unclear. So out of 1,000 children, was that only 18% of that 1,000 children were able to supply child care to, whether it's through a county system or a private, or was that only that 18% of them was receiving subsidy of that 1,000 children?
So the number of available regulated childcare spaces is actually the number of physical licensed spaces. So there's quality rigor attached to those licensed spaces. So it is both private and nonprofit childcare centers, as well as our home childcare program. The number that talks about the subsidy is a separate one, which is our percentage of available childcare spaces subsidized. So that's this number here. So of the childcare spaces that we have, the 188 per 1,000 children, we are subsidizing 10% of those.
Okay, that helps me on the subsidy, but I guess I'm back to that 188 of 1,000. Are you saying there's like 800 children that we can't find childcare spots for?
So what I'm saying is the supply is the 188. The other children in the system may have parents that are at home with them, and or they may be using totally private arrangements. So, a mom has made an arrangement with a neighbor down the street to mind the children during the day, as opposed to licensed childcare. Does that help?
Yeah, somewhat. I'm not going to prolong it.
Okay. Sorry, Kelly, if you had to comment, but.
Politics,
Yes.
That's what I read in the paper, right?
Yeah. I definitely would, through you, Warden, agree with your comment that it is quite difficult for people to have childcare. We're very aware of that. And part of when we bring forward some information on the workforce strategy and look at what we're attempting to do in a local context to mitigate against some of that, hopefully that will answer some more of the concern and question that you have in that area too.
Any other questions, or did you have a comment, Kelly?
Through you, Mr. Warden, the only thing I would add is to keep in mind that when you see the language of regulated, that there is a quality assessment that goes with those spaces, but it does not mean that's the total number of spaces available in the system. And ideally, from the staff perspective, we would certainly like to do everything that we can do to elevate that, because then we have confidence that the children in the system are getting a level of care that has quality attached to it.
Moving on, then.
Okay, so moving on to an update on our major initiatives. The service delivery hub location, we have been looking at the Port Elgin location and are expecting to bring back to committees in Q2 an update on that presentation. Staff have completed a review of the site and building condition assessment analysis, and that requires some further analysis based on questions that we received there. So we will be bringing that back in the coming months. With regard to the communication strategy to engage stakeholders in the Early On system, the first Early On program guide was launched, and we've also installed the Early On signage at our centers and satellite locations. The OneList software application is, planning has commenced, and the enhancements are rolling out. A great thing for the users of the system is that there is now a guide and a how-to video, making it easier for families to understand how they can use that OneList to apply for childcare. And it will be posted early in Q2 so that families can start accessing that as soon as it's ready to go. The Special Needs Resource Program, the enhanced software work is underway as well too. In Q1, the resource team really focused on what are the items that they need to customize and began planning for it and transitioning, and of course are working in consultation with ITS for this program. With the regeneration and development of housing stock, in Q1 staff have been doing a lot of preparatory work with the consultant, and a summary of the recommended approach will come forward in Q2. The asset management, the condition assessment forecasting needs, at Q1 all of the stakeholders across the corporation have been meeting with the finance team involved in that as well too. And next steps are going to be confirmed in Q2. The housing and homelessness planning is underway. Enumeration occurred at the end of April, and the coordinator that's working on the process is in the process of rolling up the information that was received, and we will be hearing from that and reporting back on that. So the next steps would be to take that information and look at then how we're going to consult with the community further in preparation for preparing the 5-year review homelessness plan update that's due in June 2019 and will be part of our 2019 business plan. The other projects listed are just in holding pattern until they're expected to take place, with the exception of social assistance modernization. As at Q1, the income support supervisor had attended the social assistance change liaison meeting, and so working with counterparts from across the province that are working on that process. And lean methodology as well at play with the group looking at the business practices there. And that's been a part, for example, of the reduction of number of days until people are receiving eligibility. And again, work has been taking place on the communication strategy for the redesigned community participation program. Staff were really excited in Q1 that they were able to bring on board a number of new community placements, and there were several other host agencies that had expressed participating in the program that have since come on board in Q2 as well too. And then there's an update on each of the capital projects, and I can take any questions if there are any.
Ed?
I was just interested in the several host agencies have expressed interest in participating in the program, this promoting community placements. And so what other organizations would you work with? Just businesses? And I'm interested, you know, with community living. They have a community placement and your coordination with them as well.
So our community placements really are volunteer experiences that are looking at the particular individual that we're serving and areas of interest which might help them build new skills. Typically our placements are with they are with nonprofit organizations, and we have established some within other departments of the county as well too. So one placement that I know is working really well, one of the earlier ones that came on board this year was at a library. And so there was a participant who's interested in gaining some more skills and was paired up with a library staff person who could be the mentor. And so they're fulfilling some volunteer hours within the county to complete that time. Any community placement program that, say for example, the community livings are providing would be really specific to the programs that they're delivering and what that entails. So not necessarily is there coordination there because we're placing different people. So we wouldn't have someone typically that's a community living client that's on Ontario Works. Predominantly, once they're a community living client, they'd be on Ontario Disability Support Program, if that helps.
Anyone else?